So now I want to take a few minutes to talk about the overall structure of the course and the expectations for it. So in this video, we'll talk about the course prerequisites. We'll talk about the 6 modules that we'll be going through over the next 6 weeks. We'll talk about the in-video links, quizzes, and exercises, the weekly quizzes you'll do, the projects, and the use of the discussion forums. This class has no prerequisites, and even if you have no background in music or music technology at all, if you work hard, you'll do very well in this course. When I teach this course at Georgia Tech, some of my best students every semester are always the ones that come in with no prior experience at all. That said, if you do have a background, we'll leverage that and we'll build upon that and deepen your skills. In the realm of music, if you can read music and if you can play a keyboard, a piano, those are both great assets to have, particularly in Module 3 when we're talking about MIDI. If you don't have those skills, it's okay, and if you get a little overwhelmed as we're going through these MIDI techniques and looking at piano keyboards and things like that, just hang in there in Module 3, because at the end I'll introduce some techniques with pattern sequencing that are extremely accessible even if you really don't know anything about playing a keyboard or reading music notation. If you've composed music before, that's great. If you haven't, that's okay too. I do expect you all to compose music as part of this course, but it'll be structured in a way that you don't need to be able to write music notation. We'll be working in a DAW, digital audio workstation, so we'll be dragging things around and kind of using our ear to guide us about how things should fit together. And then we'll also be writing code. And so the way that we write code will help us structure our compositions. If you have any background in music technology, that's great as well. I imagine that most of you have at least seen a DAW, or digital audio workstation, before, a program like GarageBand or something like that. If you haven't, that's okay. We'll go through some of the basics pretty quickly, but I'll point you towards some resources to delve into that deeper if you feel like you need a little bit more background. And with computer programming, again, if you've programmed in any language before, that's a great asset, and you'll be able to build upon the skills you already have. But I will be starting with Python from square one, assuming that you don't know anything about programming or Python. I'll go through things very quickly, and I'll provide resources if you need to delve into more detail on any of the basic concepts for you to learn more and kind of go through them in more depth. So the course is divided into 6 modules, not including this Module 0 pre-module that this video is a part of. And each module lasts a week of the course. And they cover different themes in music technology. So Module 1 is called the Basics of Sound, and it's about how do we represent sound digitally? How do we hear sound? What are the psychoacoustics of sound? How do we represent sound in terms of frequency and timbre and amplitude and other things like that? And also, how do we analyze sound on a computer? The second and third modules get into details of working hands-on with music production, and we'll be working with the Reaper digital audio workstation. In Module 2, we'll learn what a digital audio workstation is, and we'll work with audio manipulations in DAWs. We'll place audio on the multi-track timeline. We will edit it and manipulate it in different ways. We'll add effects, and we'll learn about how some of those effects work. In Module 3, we'll switch from working with audio to working in the symbolic domain, working with MIDI data that represents music at a more abstract level. And we'll learn how MIDI is different from working with audio and the advantages and disadvantages of it. And we'll learn how to record and edit and manipulate MIDI in some of the same ways as we can with audio, but also in some fundamentally different ways that give us new types of control and power over editing and manipulating our data. In Modules 4 and 5, we turn from working in a music production environment to working in a music programming environment, using the EarSketch system that we've developed here at Georgia Tech to learn the basics of Python programming and algorithmic composition, and writing code to do things in a DAW-like environment. And so we learn about algorithmic composition, some basic techniques of Python programming, and using this EarSketch environment in Module 4. And then in Module 5, we cover more advanced techniques that really explore why we would want to write code to make music in the first place, and that the different things that it enables us to do that aren't really possible in a graphical user interface. And then finally, in Module 6 of the course, we take all these things that we've learned and we look at how they've kind of formed building blocks for current practice in music technology research, both in academia and in industry, looking at a few key fields that are really revolutionizing the ways that we make and experience music. In pretty much every video in the course, there will be some pop-up windows that come up at various points during the video, usually once or twice per video. Often these will just be links to audio or video content that I'm discussing in the video. So at the moment I'm discussing it, the link will pop up just like in the last couple of videos for you to see it on YouTube or another similar service like that. Often there will also be these very simple, usually multiple choice quiz questions, just to test your understanding, making sure you're following what I've been saying. So to ask you some questions about the material we've just covered. And that's a great way to test your understanding of what's going on before you continue. And then sometimes there will be little pop-up exercises that happen that are more hands-on, where usually I'll just have demoed something either with coding or with working in the digital audio workstation software. And I'll ask you to try it yourself, or I'll ask you to try a slight variation on it yourself, or experiment with a few different possibilities before you continue with the video. Each week there's also a separate quiz that you take, mostly multiple choice questions, occasionally a simple answer like a one word or one number kind of response, to test your understanding of material from all of the lectures. And we cover all the material from the lectures there, theory, aesthetics, history, practice, kind of how you do different things, and what considerations and concerns might exist. And then we'll test more your hands-on skills through two projects. One will be due at the end of Module 3, and the other will be due at the end of Module 5. The first one really focuses on using audio and MIDI in the DAW, working with it, manipulating with it, and composing. The second is also a creative and compositional assignment, but instead of doing this primarily in the graphical interface of the DAW, you'll be doing it through Python code. And these assignments will both be graded through peer assessment. We'll walk you through a rubric and a training for that when we introduce these two projects in more detail later in the course. Your main source of help and assistance throughout the course, given the kind of massive number of participants, are the discussion forums. And I strongly encourage you to participate actively, to ask questions, to answer other people's questions, and just to provide your thoughts from time to time. I encourage you to respond to each other as much as is possible to help each other out in the course, because we are unlikely to be able to answer every question that comes up, though the teaching assistant and myself will both try to answer as many as we possibly can. And just as you would in an in-person class, I encourage you to be courteous and respectful of the other people in the forum, and to treat them just as you would as you would students sitting in a physical classroom with you.